Marco Torino collected debts the way other men collected stamps, methodically, without emotion, and with an unshakable certainty that everything had a price. Today, he was collecting $200,000 from a man who'd already spent it. What he found instead was a corpse on a couch and a 5-year-old girl who asked if he was taking her to Grandma. The stairwell of the Southside tenement reeked of rust and desperation, each step groaning under the weight of Chicago's coldest January in a decade. Marco moved through it like a shadow in a Tom Ford overcoat, black leather gloves tight against his knuckles, his presence a statement before he ever opened his mouth. The fluorescent light on the third-floor landing flickered, casting his face in intervals, sharp jaw, dark eyes, the kind of calm that made smart men nervous. He didn't believe in mercy. He believed in mathematics. Tommy DeLuca owed the Torino family $200,000. He was 3 weeks late. The interest was compounding. Marco was here to settle the account. One way or another, Apartment 3F sat at the end of a hallway that smelled like microwaved grief and mildew. The door was sage green once, now stripped to raw wood in places, the brass numbers hanging like broken teeth. Marco stopped in front of it, tilted his head and listened. Silence, but not the right kind. If you're enjoying this story, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment letting me know where you're listening from. Are you Team Marco already? Or do you think he should have walked away? Let's talk. Marco knocked 3 times, flat knuckles, deliberate. No response. He tried the handle. It turned, unlocked, his jaw tightened. Tommy DeLuca was a gambler, a liar, a man who made promises with someone else's money, but he wasn't careless. Not like this. Marco had known him for 2 years, watched him fold under pressure, but never collapse. An unlocked door meant one of 2 things, surrender or ambush. Marco pushed it open with 2 fingers. The smell hit first. Sweet. Chemical. Underneath it, copper and rot, the early stages of something the living weren't supposed to witness. Death always announced itself this way, not with violence, but with absence. The absence of breath, of motion, of second chances. The apartment was cramped, a studio pretending to be a 1-bedroom. Kitchenette on the left, laminate counters buried under takeout containers, a bottle of cheap whiskey tipped on its side, amber liquid pooled and dried into the grout, a couch straight ahead, its upholstery the color of old cigars, and slumped against the armrest, head thrown back, mouth slack, was Tommy DeLuca. His left arm dangled off the cushion. A needle still jutted from the crook of his elbow, the plunger depressed. A leather belt lay coiled beside him like a shedskin. His lips had gone faintly blue. His eyes were half open, staring at nothing. Dead. 12 hours, maybe more. Marco stepped. Inside, his breath steady, controlled. He scanned the scene with the clinical efficiency of a man who'd walked into worse and would again. No broken windows, no forced entry. The door had been locked from the inside until someone, Tommy probably, left it open in his final stupid haze. This looked like an overdose. But Marco didn't believe in coincidences. Not when a man owed him $200,000. Not when that man used to be a mid-level accountant for a shipping company the Ukrainians ran through the port of Chicago. And definitely not when... Are you here to take me to my grandma? Marco's hand went to the gun under his coat. Instinct. Muscle memory. Then he saw her. A little girl. She was sitting on the floor beside the coffee table, legs folded beneath her, a box of crayons scattered across the carpet like shrapnel. Her hair was dark, almost black, gathered into 2 lopsided pigtails that framed a round, serious face. She wore pink leggings with a hole in the knee and an oversized gray sweater that swallowed her small frame. Her eyes, wide, brown, impossibly steady, locked onto Marco's. She didn't scream, didn't flinch, didn't cry. She just looked at him like he was late. Marco's hand fell away from his weapon. His pulse, which never spiked, ticked up once, twice. He'd walked into ambushes, stared down men twice his size, pulled triggers without hesitation. But a 5-year-old girl sitting 3 feet from her father's corpse, calm as Sunday morning, that was new. "What's your name?" His voice came out low, careful. He didn't soften it. He didn't know how. "Aria." Her voice was small but clear, like a single note held in an empty room. "How old are you, Aria?" She held up 5 fingers. No hesitation. Like she'd been asked before. Like she'd practiced. Marco crouched, slow, keeping his hands visible. He wasn't good with kids. Didn't know any. Didn't want to. But he knew fear, and this girl wasn't showing it. That meant she was either in shock, or she'd learned not to show it. Both options made his chest tighten in a way he didn't like. "Is that your dad?" Marco nodded toward the couch. Aria looked over her shoulder at Tommy's body. Her expression didn't change. She turned back to Marco and nodded. "When did he stop moving?" She shrugged. "I don't know. I was sleeping. When I woke up, he was like that." "Did anyone else come here? Before me?" She shook her head. "You've been here alone? All day?" Another nod. Marco stood, his coat shifting, the leather of his gloves creaking as he flexed his hands. He pulled out his phone, took 3 photos of Tommy's body. Wide shot, close-up of the needle, close-up of the belt. Then he moved through the apartment, opening drawers, checking under cushions, inside cabinets. In the bedroom, barely big enough for a mattress on the floor and a folding chair, he found it. A shoebox under the bed. Inside, $10,000 in cash, banded and clean. A burner phone, screen cracked but functional, and a ledger, handwritten, columns of numbers, dates, initials, routes, drop points, dollar amounts that didn't match a gambler's debts. Marco's eyes narrowed. Tommy DeLuca wasn't just a gambler. He was a cleaner, a launderer, and if Marco had to guess, he'd been skimming. He pocketed the phone and the ledger, left the cash. He returned to the main room. Aria hadn't moved. She was coloring again, her crayon, red, scratching softly against the paper. Marco looked at her. Really looked. No one was coming for this girl. No grandma, no aunt, no social worker who gave a damn. If he walked out, she'd be found in a day, maybe 2. Foster care if she was lucky. Worse if she wasn't. And if the Ukrainians knew Tommy had a kid, if they knew she'd been here, seen things, heard things, she wouldn't make it to foster care. Marco pulled his phone out, thumbed to his driver. The line clicked. "Bones, I need a cleanup crew at the Southside address. Quiet. No police. And bring the car around back." "Copy." He hung up, looked down at Aria. "Get your coat." She blinked up at him. "Why?" "Because you're leaving." "Where am I going?" Marco didn't answer right away. He didn't have an answer. Not yet. "Somewhere safer than here." Aria stood, small and careful, like she'd done this before. She walked to a hooks by the door and pulled down a pink puffy coat, too thin for January. She put it on, zipped it halfway, then looked back at Marco. "Can I bring my crayons?" Marco's throat tightened. "Yeah. Bring your crayons." She gathered them into the box, slow and methodical, like the world wasn't ending. Like her father wasn't dead on the couch. Like a stranger in a black coat wasn't about to take her, God knows where. Marco opened the door, checked the hallway. Empty. "Stay close to me." Aria nodded. She slipped her small hand into his. Marco froze. Her palm was warm, sticky from the crayons, impossibly small against his leather. Glove? He didn't pull away. They walked down 3 flights of stairs in silence. Bones was idling in the alley, matte, black Charger, engine purring. Marco opened the back door, guided Aria inside, buckled her in. She didn't ask questions, just clutched her crayon box and stared out the window. Marco slid into the passenger seat. Bones glanced at him, then at the girl, then back at Marco. Boss? Drive. Where? My place. Bones didn't argue. He never did. The Charger pulled onto the street, tires crunching over frozen slush. Marco pulled out his phone, dialed his uncle. Sal Torino picked up on the second ring. Talk to me. It's handled, Marco said, his voice flat. Good. He pay? No, he's dead. A pause. Overdose? Looks like it. Looks like. Marco's jaw tightened. Yeah. Any loose ends? Marco glanced into the rearview mirror. Aria was drawing again, crayon moving across a napkin she'd found in the seat pocket. No, Marco lied. None. Good. Come by tomorrow. We'll talk. The line went dead. Marco pocketed the phone, stared out at the city sliding past. Gray streets, gray sky, gray people living gray lives. Behind him, Aria's small voice cut through the silence. Mister? Marco. Marco, she repeated, testing it. Can I show you something? What? She leaned forward, held up the napkin. It wasn't a napkin. It was a piece of paper, folded and creased, pulled from inside her coat. A drawing. 3 men standing around a table. One wore a suit. One wore a leather jacket. The third, taller, older, wore a long coat and a gold watch. Marco's blood went cold. The man in the coat was Sal Torino. Daddy drew this with me, Aria said softly. He said to keep it safe. Marco took the paper, his glove trembling just once. Who are the other 2? Aria shrugged. I don't know, but Daddy said they were bad. Marco stared at the drawing. Tommy DeLuca hadn't just been skimming. He'd been keeping insurance. And Marco had just made it his problem. Marco Torino's apartment wasn't a home. It was a statement. 16th floor of a Lincoln Park high-rise, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the Chicago skyline like a painting someone forgot to finish. The furniture was expensive and empty. Black leather, chrome, glass surfaces that reflected nothing but cold light. No photographs, no plants, no evidence that a human being actually lived here. It was a place to sleep between jobs, a vault with a view. And now, standing in the middle of his pristine living room, was a 5-year-old girl in a pink coat, clutching a box of crayons like a life raft. Aria looked around slowly, her wide brown eyes taking in the space with the quiet assessment of someone far older. She didn't gasp, didn't run to the windows, just stood there, small and still, like she was waiting for permission to exist. Marco closed the door behind them, locked it. 3 deadbolts. Habit. You hungry? He asked. Aria shook her head. When's the last time you ate? She thought about it. Yesterday. Cereal. Marco's jaw tightened. He moved to the kitchen, sleek, minimal, barely used, and opened the fridge. Bottled water. Leftover Chinese takeout from 3 days ago. A 6-pack of beer. Nothing a kid could eat. He pulled out his phone, ordered delivery. Pizza. Plain. Kids liked pizza, right? He turned back to find Aria still standing in the same spot, coat still on, crayons still clutched. You can sit, Marco said, nodding toward the couch. She didn't move. You can take your coat off. She looked down at herself, then back at him. Where do I put it? Marco blinked. The question was so simple and so careful, it gutted him in a way he didn't expect. Anywhere. The chair. The couch. Doesn't matter. Aria walked to the couch, slow and deliberate, and laid her coat across the armrest like she was folding a flag. Then she sat, back straight, hands in her lap, crayons beside her. She looked like a doll someone had posed. Marco stood, there, 6'2" of muscle and menace, completely out of his depth. You want to watch TV? Aria nodded. He grabbed the remote, turned it on, scrolled past the news, past crime dramas, past anything with guns or blood, landed on some cartoon with bright colors and talking animals. He had no idea what it was. Aria's eyes flicked to the screen, but she didn't relax. Marco set the remote down, stepped back into the kitchen. He pulled the folded drawing from his coat pocket, smoothed it on the counter under the cold glow of the pendant lights. 3 men, a table. Sal's face, unmistakable. Tommy DeLuca had drawn this, or helped his daughter draw it. Either way, it was deliberate. A record, a breadcrumb. Marco pulled out his phone, snapped a photo of the drawing, and sent it to a contact saved only as Paulie. Marco, who are these two? The reply came fast. Paulie, where'd you get this? Marco, answer the question. 3 dots. Then, Paulie, guy on the left is Dmitry, Volkov, Ukrainian crew. Runs the docks. Guy on the right is Anton Kaczmarek. Money man, also Ukrainian. Marco's pulse didn't spike. It never did. But his mind did the math in seconds. Tommy DeLuca was laundering for the Ukrainians. He skimmed. He documented it. He made insurance. And when they found out, they killed him. Or tried to make it look like they didn't. Marco typed. Marco, Tommy had a kid. Girl. 5. Paulie, you took her? Marco, yeah. Paulie, why? Marco, because I did. Paulie, Marco, if the Ukrainians know she exists? Marco, they don't. Yet. Paulie, you need help? Marco glanced over his shoulder. Aria was watching the TV, but her eyes were distant. Somewhere else. Marco, I need someone who can take care of a kid. Discreet. No questions. Paulie, I know someone. Give me an hour. Marco pocketed the phone. The pizza arrived 20 minutes later. Marco set the box on the coffee table, opened it, slid a plate toward Aria. Eat. She looked at the pizza like it might bite her. It's safe, Marco said. He didn't know why he said it, but it felt necessary. Aria picked up a slice, took a small bite, chewed slowly, swallowed. Thank you, she whispered. Marco nodded, didn't trust himself to speak. If you're still with me, do me a favor, subscribe and drop a comment. I want to know, do you think Marco made the right call? Or is this little girl about to get him killed? 53 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. Marco checked the peephole. A woman, late 20s, dark hair pulled into a ponytail, jeans, boots, a canvas jacket. She carried a duffel bag and looked bored. He opened the door. She looked him up and down, unimpressed. You, Marco? Yeah. Sophia Rains. She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. Her eyes swept the apartment, clean, efficient, cataloging exits and sightlines like she'd done this before. Then she saw Aria. Sophia's expression softened, just slightly. She set her bag down, crouched to the girl's level. Hey, sweetheart, I'm Sophia. Aria looked at Marco. He nodded once. Aria turned back to Sophia. I'm Aria. That's a pretty name. Sophia smiled. It was warm. Real. You like pizza? Aria nodded. Good, me too. Sophia stood, turned to Marco. Her voice dropped. We need to talk. Alone. Marco led her to the far side of the room, near the windows. The city glittered below, indifferent. Sophia crossed her arms. Paulie said you need someone to look after a kid. Didn't mention she was sitting 3 feet from a dead body? You know about that? I know enough. I know your Torino crew. I know you don't do babysitting, so either she's leverage or you grew a conscience. Sophia's eyes narrowed. Which is it? Marco held her gaze. She's a witness. To what? I don't know yet. Then why keep her? Because if I don't, she's dead. Sophia studied him for a long moment. Then she sighed. I'm not a saint, Marco, but I don't hurt kids, and I don't work for free. Name your price. $500 a day, cash, plus expenses. And if anyone comes through that door looking for her, I walk. I'm not dying for your mistakes. Deal. Sophia blinked. That was fast. I don't negotiate when I'm wrong. Marco pulled a roll of bills from his coat, counted out 5,000, handed it to her. That's 10 days. You stay here? With her. I'll get you whatever you need. Sophia pocketed the cash. What's her story? Father OD'd, no other family, and she's got a memory like a camera. Meaning? Meaning she might know things she doesn't know she knows. Sophia glanced back at Aria, who was picking pepperoni off her pizza, organizing them in a line. She in shock. Maybe. Or she's been trained not to react. By who? Her father. Or someone worse. Sophia's jaw tightened. You get her into this mess? No, but I'm the one keeping her out of it. Sophia didn't look convinced, but she didn't leave. Fine, but if she asks about her, Dad, you're the one who tells her. Marco nodded. Sophia walked back to Aria, sat beside her on the couch. You got any favorite cartoons, Aria? Aria shook her head. Then we'll find one together. Marco watched them for a moment. This stranger, this hired caregiver, sitting with a little girl who shouldn't be alive, who maybe wouldn't be, in 24 hours. His phone buzzed, a text from Sal. Sal, noon tomorrow, Italian Village. Don't be late. Marco deleted the message. He poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey, stood by the window, and stared at the city. Somewhere out there, the Ukrainians were looking for Tommy's insurance, and Marco had just made himself the target. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. It was past midnight. Sophia had set up in the guest room, a space Marco never used, still smelling faintly of new paint. Aria was asleep on the couch, covered in a blanket Sophia had pulled from her duffel. She looked impossibly small. Marco sat in the dark, the drawing spread on the table in front of him, his phone glowing beside it. He'd run the faces, cross-referenced them with known Ukrainian operatives. Dmitry Volkov ran the Southside docks, smuggling, trafficking, extortion. Anton Kaczmarek was the money, clean on paper, dirty underneath. And Sal, his uncle, his blood, the man who'd raised him after Marco's father took a bullet in a parking lot when Marco was 12. What the hell was Sal doing in a room with the Ukrainians? Marco's phone buzzed, a voice message, no caller ID. He pressed play, static, then a voice, low, accented, Russian, maybe Ukrainian. You took something that doesn't belong to you, Mr. Torino. We'd like it back, untouched, unspoiled. You have 48 hours. The line went dead. Marco's hand tightened around the phone. They knew. He stood, walked to the couch. Aria was curled on her side, one hand tucked under her cheek, the other clutching a crayon. Even in sleep, she held on. Marco crouched. Beside her, his voice barely a whisper. I don't know what you saw, kid, but I'm gonna find out. And I'm gonna keep you safe while I do. She stirred just slightly. Her lips moved, and then, still asleep, she spoke. Blue truck, red letters, warehouse 7. Marco froze. Thursday, midnight, 60 crates. Her voice was flat, mechanical, like she was reading. 3 million, clean. Marco's blood turned to ice. Aria's eyes snapped open. She sat up, gasping, her small chest heaving. Sophia was out of the guest room in seconds, pulling Aria into her arms. Hey, it's okay, you're safe, you're safe. Aria clung to her, shaking. Marco stood, his mind racing. She wasn't just a witness, she was a recorder. Tommy DeLuca had turned his daughter into a living ledger. And now, everyone wanted to read her. The Italian Village sat on Taylor Street, like a monument to old Chicago. Red brick, iron railings, windows with lace curtains that hadn't been changed since the 70s. It smelled like garlic, espresso, and secrets. The kind of place where deals were made over veal marsala, and men who asked too many questions didn't make it to dessert. Marco arrived at 11:58. 2 minutes early was on time. On time was late. He wore a charcoal suit, no tie, his coat draped over one arm. The hostess, 60, silver hair, eyes like a hawk, nodded him toward the back without a word. She knew who he was. Everyone here did. The private room was oak-paneled and windowless, lit by a single brass chandelier that cast amber shadows across the table. Sal Torino sat at the head, a demitasse of espresso in front of him, a cigar burning in a crystal ashtray. He was 56, broad-shouldered, silver at the temples, the kind of man who looked like he'd been born wearing a suit. He didn't smile when Marco entered. Sit. Marco sat. Sal took a sip of espresso, set the cup down with a soft clink. You look tired. I'm fine. You sure? Big job yesterday, Southside. Sal's eyes, dark, sharp, measuring, locked onto Marco's. Tommy DeLuca, you said it was handled. It was? Overdose? That's what it looked like. Sal leaned back, folded his hands. What did it look like, Marco? Or what was it? Marco kept his face neutral. He was dead when I got there. Needle in his arm, belt around his bicep, door unlocked, no signs of struggle. You checked the place? Yeah. Find anything? Marco hesitated. 1 second, maybe less. Sal caught it. You found something. Marco reached into his coat, pulled out the burner phone, set it on the table. This, and about 10 grand in cash, and a ledger. Sal's expression didn't change, but his fingers tightened, just slightly, around his espresso cup. What kind of ledger? Routes, dates, initials, dollar amounts. Whose? Ukrainian crew? Docks? Looked like Tommy was cleaning money for them? Sal nodded slowly. So, he wasn't just a degenerate gambler. No. He was a thief? Marco said nothing. Sal picked up the phone, turned it over in his hands. You go through this? Not yet. Good, don't. Sal slid it into his own coat. I'll handle it. Uncle, I said I'll handle it. Sal's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Tommy DeLuca was working for the Ukrainians. If he was skimming, that's their problem. If he was sloppy, that's their loss. But it's not our fight. You understand? Marco held his gaze. Yeah? Good. Sal picked up his cigar, took a slow drag. Anything else I should know? Marco thought of Aria, curled on his couch, reciting numbers in her sleep. No, he lied. Sal studied him, long enough that Marco felt the weight of it. Then Sal smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. You're a good soldier, Marco. Your father would have been proud. Marco stood. We done? Almost. Sal leaned forward. The Ukrainians are moving product tomorrow night. Warehouse district. If Tommy left any loose ends, they'll tie them off. Permanently. So, if you know something I don't, if there's a reason you're holding back, now's the time. Marco's jaw tightened. There's nothing. Sal nodded. Then go home. Get some rest. And Marco? Yeah? Stay away from the docks. Still hooked? Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment? Do you trust Sal? Or is Marco walking into a trap? Marco left the restaurant, the cold hitting him like a slap. He walked 2 blocks before pulling out his phone. 3 missed calls, all from Sophia. He dialed back. She picked up on the first ring. Where the hell have you been? Meeting. What's wrong? She did it again. Marco stopped walking. Did what? The sleep talking. But it wasn't random, Marco. She was listing off numbers, coordinates, license plates. She went on for 20 minutes. I recorded it. Marco's chest tightened. Send it to me. Already did. He hung up, opened the file. Sophia's voice first, low and shaky. Aria, honey, wake up. Then Aria's, flat, emotionless, a child's voice speaking words she shouldn't know. Warehouse 7, Thursday midnight, 60 crates, blue truck, Illinois plates, TRX4492. 3 million, cash, Dimitri signs, Anton counts, Sal watches. Marco stopped breathing. Sal watches. He played it again and again. His uncle wasn't just connected to the Ukrainians. He was part of the deal. Marco pocketed the phone, hailed a cab, gave the driver his address, sat in the back staring at nothing, his mind running scenarios. Tommy DeLuca hadn't just been laundering money. He'd been documenting everything. And when he realized the deal went higher than he thought, when he saw Sal Torino at that table, he'd panicked. He'd made insurance, and he'd hidden it in the one place no one would think to look. His daughter. Marco's apartment was dark when he returned. Sophia was waiting by the door, arms crossed. "She's asleep," Sophia said. "For now." Marco nodded, moved past her into the living room. Aria was on the couch again, blanket pulled to her chin, breathing soft and even. He sat on the coffee table, elbows on his knees, and just looked at her. This small, fragile thing, this bomb with a heartbeat. Sophia sat beside him. "You want to tell me what the hell is going on?" Marco didn't look away from Aria. Her father worked for the Ukrainians. He was skimming. He got caught. But before they killed him, he taught his daughter to remember things. What kind of things? Everything. Dates, faces, transactions. Marco's voice was low, tight. "She's a witness to murders, to trafficking, to money laundering at the highest level." Jesus Christ. "And my family's involved." Sophia went still. "Your uncle?" Marco nodded. "So what do? We disappear." "Where?" "I don't know yet." Marco stood, walked to the window. The city stretched out below, endless and indifferent. "But if I don't move her, they'll find her. And when they do, they'll kill her." "Yeah." Sophia exhaled. "You know I'm not a bodyguard, right?" "I know." "And you know if you run, you're done. Your family, your life, everything." "I know." "So why are you doing this?" Marco looked back at Aria. "Because no one else will." Sophia was quiet for a long time. Then she stood. "Okay, then we move fast. Tonight." "Not yet." "Why?" Marco pulled out his phone, showed her the recording. "Because she knows where they're moving product. Tomorrow night. Warehouse 7? So? So if I can get proof, real proof, I can leverage it. Trade it for her safety. Or you get yourself killed, and she ends up right back where she started." Marco met her eyes. "That's why you're here. If something happens to me, you take her and you run. You don't look back. You don't contact anyone." "Marco, promise me." Sophia's jaw tightened. "Fine, but you better not die." "I don't do single parenting." The rest of the day was preparation. Marco made calls, reached out to contacts he hadn't spoken to in years, got names, addresses, locations. Sophia kept Aria distracted. Cartoons, coloring books, snacks. The girl didn't ask about her father, didn't ask where she was going. Just stayed quiet, drew her pictures, and occasionally glanced at Marco like she was checking to make sure he was still there. As the sun set, Marco knelt beside her. "Aria." She looked up. "I need to go out tonight. Sophia's going to stay with you, okay?" Aria nodded. "If anyone comes to the door, anyone who isn't me, you hide. You understand?" "Where?" "Sophia will show you." Aria looked at Sophia, then back at Marco. "Are you coming back?" Marco's throat tightened. "Yeah," he said. "I'm coming back." Warehouse 7 sat on the industrial edge of the South Side, hemmed in by chain link and rusted freight cars. The kind of place the city forgot about. Perfect for business no one wanted seen. Marco parked 3 blocks away, killed the engine, and waited. 11:47 p.m. The cold seeped through the car, turning his breath to fog. He wore black, jacket, jeans, gloves, no gun. Too risky if he got caught. Just a phone, a camera, and a knife. At 11:58, headlights cut through the dark. A blue truck, Illinois plates, TRX 4492. Marco's pulse didn't spike, but his focus sharpened. The truck backed into the loading bay. 3 men got out. One of them was Dmitry Volkov, tall, broad-shaved head. Another was Anton Kaczmarek, thin, glasses, nervous hands. And the third, Sal Torino. Marco's chest tightened. He raised his phone, started recording. The men moved crates from the truck into the warehouse. 60, just like Aria said. Dmitry opened one, checked inside. Anton counted cash from a duffel. Sal stood to the side, arms crossed, watching. Marco zoomed in. Got their faces, got the plates, got the money. Then Dmitry looked up, straight at Marco's car. Marco froze. Dmitry said something to Anton. Anton pulled a gun. Marco didn't wait. He started the engine, slammed into reverse, tires screaming. Gunfire cracked through the night. The back window exploded. Marco ducked, spun the wheel, hit the gas. The car fishtailed, straightened, roared into the dark. In the rear view, he saw headlights. They were following. Marco took the turns hard and fast, the engine screaming. Chicago's south side blurring past in streaks of sodium light and shadow. His back window was gone. Wind howling through the car like a living thing. Glass glittering across the rear seat. Behind him, the headlights stayed close. He didn't panic. Panic got you killed. He counted breaths, measured distances, calculated angles. At the next intersection, he cut the wheel hard right. No signal, no brake, just momentum and prayer. The tires bit asphalt. The car lurched sideways, and he gunned it down a narrow alley, dumpsters and fire escapes crowding in on both sides. The headlights followed. Marco cursed under his breath, eyes flicking to the rear view. The truck was wider, slower, scraping brick as it barreled after him. He had seconds. At the end of the alley, he yanked the wheel left, shot across 2 lanes of empty street, and killed his headlights. He took the next right, then another, weaving through side streets like a needle through fabric, until finally, silence. No headlight, no engine, just the wind and his own breathing. Marco pulled into an abandoned lot behind a shuttered body shop, cut the engine, and sat in the dark. His hands were steady. His heartbeat was not. He pulled out his phone. The video was still there, intact, uploading to an encrypted cloud as backup. Sal, Dmitry, Anton, the crates, the cash, all of it. Proof. But proof of what? That his uncle was dirty? That the family Marco had bled for, killed for, was in bed with the Ukrainians? That everything he thought he knew was a lie? Marco closed his eyes, just for a second. Then his phone buzzed. A text. Unknown number. Unknown. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Marco's jaw clenched. Unknown. We don't want you. We want what Tommy took. Give us the girl. Walk away. Live. Marco stared at the screen. Then he typed, Marco. She doesn't know anything. The reply was instant. Unknown. We both know. That's not true. Unknown. You have until sunrise. Navy Pier. South Dock. Bring her. Alone. Unknown. Or we come to you. Marco deleted the thread, turned off his phone, and drove. He didn't go home. Not yet. Instead, he drove to the lakefront, parked along the empty stretch of shore where the waves rolled in cold and black under the winter sky. The city glowed behind him, all light and lies. He dialed Sophia. She picked up on the first ring. Are you okay? Yeah. You? We're fine. Aria's asleep. What happened? They saw me. Sophia swore. Are they coming? Not yet, but they will. When? Sunrise, maybe sooner. Then we need to move. Now. No. Marco, I need you to pack a bag. Cash, clothes, whatever she needs. There's a lockbox under my bed. Code is 7419. Inside is 50,000 and a clean passport for you. Take it. Where are we going? You're going to Milwaukee. There's a motel off I-94. The Bluebird, room 12. It's paid for. Keys in the lockbox. You stay there. You wait. You don't call anyone. What about you? Marco looked out at the water. I'm finishing this. That's suicide. Maybe. Marco, if I don't come back by tomorrow night, you take her and you run. Canada, Mexico, I don't care, just go. Sophia was silent for a long time. You're an idiot, she said finally. I know. And you better come back. I'll try. He hung up before she could argue. Are you Team Marco or Team Sophia? Drop a comment and let me know. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Marco sat there for another 20 minutes, watching the lake, running through every scenario, every angle. Then he drove home. The apartment was quiet when he entered. Sophia was in the kitchen, a duffel bag on the counter, methodically packing. Clothes, formula, first aid kit. She looked up when he walked in. She's in the guest room, Sophia said. Still asleep. Marco nodded. Sophia zipped the bag. You really think you can trade them the evidence for her safety? No. Then what's the plan? I give them what they want. Marco, not her, the proof, the ledger, the video, everything Tommy collected. I hand it over. I tell them she doesn't remember anything. I walk away. And you think they'll believe you? No. Then you're walking into an execution. Marco met her eyes. I know. Sophia's face hardened. Then I'm coming with you. No. She needs someone. She needs you, alive, not bleeding out on a dock because you thought you could help. Marco's voice was low, firm. You protect her. That's the job. That's the only job. Sophia stared at him. Then she grabbed the duffel, slung it over her shoulder, and walked to the guest room. Marco stood alone in the kitchen, the weight of the next few hours pressing down like a vice. He walked to the window, looked out at the city one more time. Then he heard her. Marco? He turned. Aria stood in the doorway of the guest room, her hair mussed, her eyes half open. She clutched her stuffed rabbit, something Sophia must have found for her. Hey, Marco said softly. You okay? She nodded. Then, are you leaving? Marco crouched, met her at eye level. Yeah, for a little bit. Are you coming back? He wanted to lie, wanted to promise her something he couldn't guarantee, but she'd had enough lies. I don't know, he said. Aria looked at him for a long time. Then she walked over, slow and careful, and wrapped her small arms around his neck. Marco froze. He didn't know what to do, didn't know how to hold her without breaking her. But then his arms came up, careful, and he held her. She smelled like soap and crayons. Thank you, she whispered. Marco's throat closed. For what? For not leaving me there. He pulled back, looked at her. You're safe now. You hear me? Sophia's gonna take care of you. You're gonna be okay. Aria nodded, but her eyes, those wide, knowing eyes, said she didn't believe him. Sophia appeared in the doorway. Come on, sweetie, let's get you back to bed. Aria let go, walked back to Sophia. At the door, she turned. Marco. Yeah? My dad used to say something when he was scared. Marco's chest tightened. What did he say? He said, the bad men always think they've won. That's when you run. Marco stared at her. You should run, Aria said. Then Sophia led her away. Marco left at 4 a.m. The city was still asleep, the streets empty, the sky a deep bruise of purple and black. He drove to Navy Pier, parked a block away, and walked. The South Dock was industrial, forgotten. Rusted metal, rotting wood, the smell of oil and dead fish. The lake stretched out beyond it, black and endless. Marco stood at the edge, hands in his coat pockets, and waited. At 4:47, headlights appeared. A black SUV rolled to a stop 30 feet away. The engine cut. Doors opened. 3 men stepped out. Dimitri, Anton, and a third Marco didn't recognize. Younger, wiry, a gun already in his hand. Dimitri walked forward, hands loose at his sides, a smile on his face. Mr. Torino, you came. I came. Where's the girl? Gone. Dimitri's smile faded. That wasn't the deal. The deal was I bring you what Tommy took. I did. Marco pulled out a USB drive, held it up. Everything. Ledger, routes, transactions, video from last night. All of it. Dimitri's eyes narrowed. And the girl? Doesn't remember anything. She's 5. She drew pictures. That's it. Then why did you take her? Because I'm not a monster. Dimitri laughed. It was cold. Empty. No, he said. You're just stupid. He nodded. The younger man raised his gun. And then, sirens. Distant, but closing fast. Dimitri turned, eyes wide. Marco didn't move, didn't smile. I uploaded everything an hour ago, Marco said. Sent it to the FBI, the Chicago PD. 3 journalists. It's over. Dimitri's face went white, then red. You, I burned it all down. You, Sal, the whole operation. You want to kill me? Go ahead, but you're already done. The sirens were close now, flashing lights painting the dock in red and blue. Dimitri spat on the ground, turned, and ran. Anton followed. The younger man hesitated, gun still raised. Marco looked him dead in the eye. Your call. The man lowered the gun, ran. Marco stood there as the police cars screamed into the lot, as voices shouted, as footsteps pounded toward him. He raised his hands, and for the first time in years, he smiled. Marco spent 16 hours in a Chicago PD interrogation room that smelled like burnt coffee and broken promises. They asked him about Tommy DeLuca, about the Ukrainians, about Sal Torino, about the girl. He told them everything. Well, almost everything. He gave them the ledger, the video, the routes, the names. He handed them a conspiracy that reached from the Southside docks all the way into the heart of the Chicago outfit. But he didn't tell them where Aria was. And when they pressed, when the federal agent leaned across the table with her tailored suit and her sharp eyes and asked, "Where's the child, Mr. Torino?" Marco looked her dead in the face and said, "Safe." They couldn't hold him. No weapon, no priors, no evidence he'd committed a crime beyond withholding the location of a minor who wasn't legally in danger. At 9 p.m., they let him go. Marco walked out of the precinct into the cold Chicago night, hands in his pockets, and didn't look back. His phone was gone, seized as evidence. His car was impounded. He had $73 in his wallet and the clothes on his back. He walked 6 blocks to a payphone outside a shuttered diner, dropped in quarters, and dialed a number he'd memorized years ago. It rang 4 times. Then, "Yeah? Bones, it's me." A pause. "Jesus, Marco? Where the hell are you?" "Taylor and Ashland. I need a ride." "You know half the city's looking for you, right?" "I know." "Sal's put a price on your head?" "I know." "And you still want me to pick you up?" Marco leaned his forehead against the cold metal of the phone. "Yeah." Another pause. Then, "Give me 20. Bones pulled up in the same matte black Charger, engine purring like a threat. Marco slid into the passenger seat, and Bones didn't ask questions, didn't say a word, just drove. They headed north, out of the city, the skyline shrinking in the rear view until it was just a glow on the horizon. Finally, Bones spoke. "You really do it? Burn the whole thing down?" "Yeah." "Why?" Marco looked out the window. "Because it was already burning. I just lit the match." Bones shook his head. "You know you can't come back." "I know." "You know Sal's gonna come for you." "Let him." Bones glanced over. "What about the girl?" Marco didn't answer. Bones drove. "If you're still with me, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment telling me, do you think Marco made the right choice? Would you have done the same? The Bluebird Motel sat just off I-94, a low-slung relic from the 50s with peeling paint and a neon sign that flickered like a dying heartbeat. Room 12 was at the far end, tucked behind a row of empty ice machines and a dumpster that reeked of grease. Marco knocked 3 times. Pause, twice more. The door opened. Sophia stood there, eyes sharp, a kitchen knife in one hand. When she saw him, her shoulders dropped. You're alive. Barely. She stepped aside. Marco walked in. The room was small. 2 beds, a TV older than Aria, wallpaper that had given up decades ago. But it was warm, clean, safe. And sitting on the bed coloring was Aria. She looked up when Marco entered. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then she set down her crayon, slid off the bed and walked over. She didn't say anything, just looked up at him with those wide, knowing eyes. Marco crouched. Hey, kid. You came back? I told you I'd try. Aria nodded, then quiet as a whisper. Is it over? Marco wanted to say yes, wanted to tell her the monsters were gone, the bad men were locked up, the world was safe again. But he'd promised himself no more lies. Not yet, he said, but it will be. Aria studied his face. Then she hugged him. Marco closed his eyes, wrapped his arms around her, and held on. Sophia made coffee. Marco sat at the small table by the window, watching the parking lot, waiting for headlights that didn't come. They're looking for you, Sophia said, handing him a mug. I know. FBI came by the apartment, tossed it, took everything. Good. What's the plan? Marco sipped the coffee. It was terrible. He drank it anyway. We leave. Tonight. Where? South? Maybe North Carolina, somewhere small, somewhere no one looks twice. And then what? Then we wait. The feds will move on Sal, on the Ukrainians. It'll take time, but they'll do it. And when the dust settles, we disappear. Marco nodded. Sophia sat across from him. You know this is insane, right? Yeah. You're throwing away everything? Your family, your life, your name. I know. For a kid you met 3 days ago. Marco looked over at Aria. She was drawing again, her crayon moving in careful, deliberate strokes. Yeah, he said. For her. Sophia shook her head, but she was smiling. Just a little. You're an idiot, Marco Torino. I know. They left at midnight. Bones had brought a different car. A nondescript sedan, clean plates, no history. Marco didn't ask where he got it. Sophia loaded the bags. Aria climbed into the back seat, clutching her rabbit and her crayons. Bones pulled Marco aside. You sure about this? No. You need anything, money, a gun, a place to lay low, you call me. I will. Bones handed him a phone. Burner. Untraceable. 1 number programmed in. Mine. You use it, you ditch it, you hear me? Marco took the phone. Thanks, Bones. Don't thank me. Just stay alive. They shook hands. Then Marco got in the car. Sophia was in the passenger seat. Aria was buckled in the back, staring out the window. Marco started the engine. And they drove. 3 months later, a small house outside Asheville, North Carolina. 2 bedrooms, a porch, a backyard with a tire swing Marco had hung himself. The paint was chipped, the floors creaked, but it was theirs. Aria was enrolled in school under a new name, Emma Russo. She was doing well, made a friend, smiled more. Sophia had found work at a nearby clinic. She came home tired but lighter, like she'd finally stopped running. And Marco built things, bookshelves, tables, a garden bed. He worked with his hands, fixed what was broken, and tried not to think about Chicago. Most days, it worked. On a Tuesday afternoon, Marco was in the backyard, sanding down a piece of wood for a new bench, when Aria came outside. She was holding a piece of paper. "I made something for you," she said. Marco set down the sandpaper, wiped his hands. "Yeah? Let's see." She handed it to him. It was a drawing. 3 people standing in front of a small house. A man, a woman, a little girl. They were smiling. Marco's throat tightened. "You like it?" Aria asked. He looked down at her. This little girl who'd lost everything, who'd seen too much, who somehow still believed the world could be good. "Yeah," Marco said. "I love it." Aria beamed. "Can we hang it up?" "Absolutely." She ran back inside, calling for Sophia. Marco stood there holding the drawing, the sun warm on his face. For the first time in years, he wasn't looking over his shoulder. He wasn't counting debts. He wasn't waiting for the next job, the next call, the next bullet. He was just here, and that was enough. Inside, Sophia was making dinner. Aria was setting the table, carefully placing forks and knives like it mattered. Marco walked in, taped the drawing to the fridge. Aria looked up at him, grinning. "We're a family now, right?" Marco glanced at Sophia. She was watching him, a soft smile on her face. He looked back at Aria. "Yeah, kid," he said. "We're a family." And for the first time in his life, Marco Torino believed it. If this story hit you in the chest, do me a favor. Subscribe, like, comment. Tell me where you're watching from and what you thought of Marco's journey. Did he make the right call? Would you have done the same? And if you want more dark romance, more Mafia mysteries, more stories that don't let go, stick around. Because we're just getting started.